The Mariners' Game 4 pitching meltdown. A bold call that might just sink Seattle's championship dreams. But who's really to blame? Imagine the tension in the stadium, the roar of the crowd, and the weight of a playoff game hanging in the balance. For the Seattle Mariners, Game 4 of the American League Championship Series was supposed to be their moment to seize control. But a series of high-stakes pitching decisions unraveled spectacularly, leaving fans and experts alike questioning whether this could be the turning point that ends their postseason run. As a baseball enthusiast, I've seen plenty of nail-biters, but this one feels different. It's a cautionary tale about strategy, trust, and the unforgiving nature of October baseball. Stick around, because we're about to dive deep into what went wrong and why it matters for the series ahead. Senior ESPN writer and analyst Buster Olney, who brings his expertise from ESPN magazine, television, and his best-selling book, The Last Night of the Yankee Dynasty, breaks down this pivotal matchup from Seattle. Let's rewind to that crucial moment in the third inning. Luis Castillo, the Mariners' ace and a three-time All-Star, flashed a tight smile as Seattle manager Dan Wilson approached him on the mound. Castillo, known for his rock-solid reliability among the team's star-studded starting rotation, had been cruising early, hurling pitches with precision and even hitting 95 miles per hour on his fastball. But his performance dipped in that fateful inning, and Wilson made the call to pull him. Castillo, who had tossed just 48 pitches, the lowest in his 9-year career, nodded in reluctant acceptance and trotted back to the dugout, handing the ball over. For context, Castillo's swing and miss rate has been at a career low this season, and Toronto had already tagged him for 8 runs over 10 innings in the regular season. It was a tough spot, but Wilson saw an opportunity to lean on the bullpen aggressively, a plan they discussed beforehand. What transpired next? Well, it wasn't pretty. The Mariners' relief pitchers couldn't stem the tide, and the Blue Jays exploded for an 8-2 victory. With the series now knotted at 2 games each, Seattle heads into Game 5 with a bullpen that's been stretched thin, complicating their options even further. Postseason decisions always get judged by the final score, and while that's not entirely fair, it's the reality of high-stakes baseball. You make decisions, Wilson explained post-game, and you have to live with them. It echoes the mantra of managers everywhere. Every choice carries risk, especially when the pressure is on. But here's where it gets controversial. The Mariners had entered Game 4 with a proactive strategy to unleash their bullpen early. After Toronto dominated them in Game 3, Wilson had wisely preserved his top relievers, guys like Gabe Speier, Matt Brash, and Andres Munoz, plus the promising Bryan Woo, who was sidelined by injury on September 20, but could potentially return. Woo had been Seattle's standout before his setback, so having him as a potential wild card added intrigue. For beginners wondering why this matters, think of it like chess. In baseball, rotating pitchers is about fatigue management and matching lefties against righties to exploit weaknesses, much like how a quarterback might call an audible to counter the defense. Castillo started strong, striking the zone effectively in the first 2 innings. Then, disaster struck in the third. Isaiah Kiner-Falefa smacked a double, and Andres Gimenez launched a slider into the right field bleachers for a home run, flipping the score to 2-1 in Toronto's favor. As runners continued to reach base, with hits by Nathan Lukes and Vladimir Guerrero Jr. Catcher Cal Raleigh later noted that Castillo's pitch count had climbed too quickly in the middle of the frame, signaling trouble. Wilson faced a critical fork in the road. Stick with Castillo or bring in Speier, a left-handed reliever, to face lefty hitter Dalton Varsho. He chose the latter, pulling Castillo after just 48 pitches and explaining his intent directly to the pitcher. Castillo returned to the bench, watching as Varsho battled back from an 0-1 count to draw a walk, extending the lead to 3-1. Speier then shut down the next 2 batters with strikeouts, earning a high five from Castillo upon exiting. It seemed like a smart pivot at the time, a classic example of bullpen specialization, where managers use matchup advantages to gain an edge, similar to how teams in other sports sub out players for specific situations. And this is the part most people miss, or perhaps gloss over. The drama didn't end there. In the fourth inning, Spire ran into hot water again after a Kiner Falefa single and a bunt. Up came George Springer, a right-handed hitter, with options on deck. Wilson could have brought in Brash, his elite setup man, to face Springer, forced Spire to pitch carefully around him, or let Spire continue. He opted for the third choice, and Springer crushed a double to left center, pushing the score to 4-1. By then, Spire had thrown 32 pitches, a career high, and was done for the night. Wilson brought in Brash, but with a 3-run deficit, it wasn't the ideal scenario. Seattle's bullpen ended up handling 20 outs, a heavy load that could haunt them. Looking ahead, Bryce Miller takes the mound for Game 5, Seattle's last shot at a win in front of their home fans. The series will head back to Toronto, but Miller's performance, coupled with that overworked bullpen, will determine if the Mariners salvage a lead. Wilson remained optimistic, noting, "We did use bullpen guys tonight, but they were very well rested again. So I think that we're still in good shape in terms of our bullpen, and also, we have Brian down there as well, and we'll utilize him when the time is right." It's a reminder that rest and recovery are key in baseball, much like in endurance sports where athletes pace themselves for multiple events. One lingering mystery. How did Castillo really feel about being yanked so early? Unlike his usual post-game routine of chatting with reporters through thick and thin, he was nowhere to be found by the time the clubhouse opened. Was it frustration, acceptance, or something else? We may never know. But it adds a human element to this story. Pitchers are people too, with emotions running high after such calls. Now, here's a thought that might stir the pot. Was Wilson's decision to pull Castillo too hasty? Or was it a genius move that just didn't pay off? Some argue it showcased proactive management, saving Castillo for future starts if the series extends. Others see it as a lack of faith in an all-star, potentially demoralizing the team. And what about the bullpen overuse? Is it setting up a domino effect for Game 5, or are these veterans tough enough to bounce back? Baseball fans love debating these what-ifs. It's part of what makes the sport so addictive. Do you think Wilson dodged a bullet by being aggressive, or did he gamble and lose? Agree or disagree in the comments. Let's hear your take on whether this changes the Mariners' fate.